This past week on a Monday Night Raw, WWE announced that we would have a Women's Elimination Chamber match happening at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, announced that we'll get a #1 contender for this to go on to challenge for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. Now, of course, at the time of recording, we only got 5 names, which of course made the biggest talking point for WWE and the universe, who would beat the mystery 6th person. Now, to go through the 5 that we've got so far, we've got the likes of Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Doudrop, Rhea Ripley, and Nikki ASH. So now the big question is, who is going to fill that 6th spot? Is it another member of the Raw Women's roster? Will we get someone come over from Smackdown? Don't tell me WWE didn't create the Forbidden Door with the quarterly brand-to-brand invitational. We could get perhaps maybe a surprise return, or even WWE legends could be brought back for this special occasion. We already have one legend competing at Elimination Chamber in Alita, who will actually be challenging for the Raw Women's Championship. So I'm going to go through all the possibilities for you here today on this video, give the chances out of 10 on each possibility, and at the end of the video I'm going to give my full prediction of who I think will be filling that 6th spot in the Elimination Chamber, of course, against the fine array of talent that we've already got going in the chamber this next Saturday. So let's start off with some excitement, shall we? Let's talk about the returns, because that's what I think a lot of people will be looking and thinking, well, we've got a spot that's not been announced, surely it's somebody coming back, and who do we want most of all? I'm sure most people already screaming at the screen, Bayley would be someone that we'd like to see come back, because if Bayley was to come in at this spot, perhaps she would be a contender to win the match as well, if it was announced at the time, of course, of the actual match about to start. Say all 5 other women are in the pods and in the chamber, and Bayley comes to the ring. I think a lot of people would be pretty excited, and we could also get the prospect of Bayley going back into the feud that she had when she was injured and left against Bianca Belair, and of course that as well, we've never seen Bayley versus Becky Lynch, so on the main roster anyway, and that would be a WrestleMania worthy match. So that for me would be something I'd really like to see. I think a lot of people would want to happen, but at the same time I do believe, from my understanding, according to Dave Meltzer and other wrestling reporters out there, that Bayley is not scheduled to return from injury until March, which means we are currently in February. So if that is the case, that could rule Bayley out, but if she is ahead of schedule, I certainly could see this as a possibility. I think it would be a name that would be worthy as a mystery entrant. I could see it being potentially a 7 out of 10 chance, but one I think could be more likely, someone that was due back in February, is Asuka. Now Asuka, of course, has been out for quite a while now, but coming back at this point, coming into the Elimination Chamber, would do a lot of things that would tick the boxes, because Asuka, she's a ready-made challenger, she's a long-time Raw Women's Champion, in fact multiple-time Women's Champion in WWE. She certainly would be a threat to be there in the WrestleMania match, perhaps going against Becky Lynch. Let's not forget that Becky Lynch actually gave over the Raw Women's Championship to Asuka, who was the Money in the Bank holder when Becky left to become a mum, so you've got a storyline that's set and ready there. But Asuka also doesn't even have to win the chamber. She can have a great performance, and it would not harm her reputation to come in, say, finish second in the match, because it's expected, I think, to many that Bianca Belair probably would go on to take on Becky Lynch at WrestleMania at this point. So for me personally, I think Asuka is well within a shout. She was expected around February time. Royal Rumble was too soon, even though she was in conversation to be perhaps a part of that match. So for me, I see this one as a very likely one. I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10 possibility that this one could go down. An outside factor as well, a return could be Lacey Evans. Now a few people might be saying, well, hang on, we talked about the other 2. Lacey Evans, she recently became a mum. Well, stranger things have happened. People have come back sooner from that before. She's certainly been in training for quite a while now. I know that she wants to come back in. And let's not forget a couple of key factors here why Lacey Evans could be a contender in WWE's eyes. Lacey Evans was actually involved in the first women's match during one of these Saudi Arabia events, of course, a few years ago against Natalya, so she's someone that's already been called upon for that spot when it's been done before. And let's not forget as well that when Lacey Evans announced she was pregnant and went off TV, she was actually scheduled to go for the Raw Women's Championship at Elimination Chamber last year, so she could fit straight back in where she was before and a contender going for the championship. She was even probably expected to go into WrestleMania as champion at that point. I'm not so sure that would happen this time around, but certainly it's food for thought. WWE have relied on Lacey Evans before. The sassy Southern Belle is definitely more than capable of filling this spot. Like I said, she's been called upon before. So for me, I see this as a potential 7 out of 10. I think there's certainly potential that this one could happen. Let's look at the Raw Women's Division, shall we? There's a couple of contenders that could be involved. One half of the Women's Tag Team Champions, Queen Zelina, for me would certainly be one who would be capable of filling that spot. Let's not forget she eliminated Sasha Banks from the Royal Rumble. She's on quite a hot streak, being one half of the Tag Team Champions, and also she won the Queen's Crown Tournament the last time WWE were in Saudi Arabia. So certainly there is history there. She's won accolades there before. Could she do it 2 times in a row if she was to fill this spot in the Elimination Chamber? And certainly she could be used then in that spot to perhaps maybe set a program up for the Women's Tag Team Championship going into WrestleMania with other members of the Raw roster that is in the Elimination Chamber. So for me, this certainly would make sense if they were to go down this avenue. I think she would make the most sense of all the Raw Women's superstars that are left over. I'm going to go for a 5 out of 10 though, because I'm not so sure if it is going to happen. You could look at Carmella as well, the other half of the Women's Tag Team Champions. Again, fits a lot of the bill before, could set up for WrestleMania match with the Tag Team Championships. She's definitely been called upon before for big situations from WWE. Don't believe she's wrestled in Saudi Arabia, so this would be a first time if she was to be given that opportunity. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing it, but I do think a lot of people would perhaps be disappointed. Let's look back at SummerSlam. If Carmella was filling in the spot and we didn't get Becky Lynch, I think a lot of people would be unhappy. So for me, I'm going to go for a 4 out of 10. I'm not sure this one is going to go down. One of one is the 24/7 champion Dana Brooke. Now, of course, she could be involved in this, but for me, I just think it would be a bit of a disappointment. Same with Tamina as well. I think both of those names are very unlikely. I'm going to go for a 1 out of 10 for both of them. But let's look at the SmackDown Women's roster. Now, of course, SmackDown had aired last night, or at the time of recording was last night, and no one had been announced for this 6th spot. Nothing had been set for SmackDown to perhaps fill a spot. But for me, I'd like to see someone like Sasha Banks be added because, let's be fair, it's a big time fill. It gives her a redirection now for WrestleMania plans. Of course, many, if you believe Dave Meltzer's reports as early as November, she was slated to be taking on Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania. Those plans have changed. It's now Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. How can we get Sasha Banks in a championship match at WrestleMania? Well, the brand-to-brand invitational. Why not do it? Why not give SmackDown a spot here on this card? And arguably, Sasha Banks, one of the highest, biggest profile names WWE could put in this spot. If none of the returns are ready, and you arguably, don't want to use one of the Raw women that I've mentioned already, Sasha Banks would make a lot of sense to fill that spot. Do I think it's a likelihood? I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 because I just think WWE might go for name value. If they hit the panic mode, they'd find a way to do the crossover if they wanted to, but I'm not so sure if it's going to happen. But Sasha Banks, of course, was on the last Saudi Arabia event. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they were to find a way to put her on this one. But for me, I'm going to go for a 4 out of 10. NXT could also be a possibility as well. I think looking at their roster, the most likely to be called up at this stage would be a Raquel Gonzalez or perhaps even an Io Shirai. But if you look at things right now in NXT, we've got the Dusty Women's Tag Team Classic about to take shape. Both women are in this tournament as well. Of course, Raquel Gonzalez actually going to be teaming with Cora Jade, and Io Shirai going to be teaming with Kaylee Ray. So I don't think either of them will be taking this spot at this particular time. Perhaps one or both could be called up to Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania. So for me, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10 possibility. Last but not least, let's look at some of the potential return ideas. Now, of course, I've already mentioned the Forbidden Door was created by WWE, so don't expect them to go for Mickie James or Impact Wrestling or any of the Knockouts or anywhere else for that matter. But looking at the Royal Rumble, we had a couple of names that I think could be worthy of a spot here come the Elimination Chamber. Mighty Molly could be one of them. Surely she'd want revenge on Nikki ASH after what happened there. We could get the superheroes collide. It could almost be like a Marvel experience. Certainly, we've seen some weird and wonderful things that are done on WWE pay-per-view. So certainly, this is one I think food for thought could happen. Molly Holly is working with WWE as a producer or road agent, something like that in that capacity. So she would easily be able to be called upon to be put in this spot. So for me, I do think there's potential it could happen. I'm just not sure it will. I'm going to go for a 5 out of 10, but I'm not so sure on it. Another one I could call upon when we speak about legends, Nikki Bella could be one as well, one of the Bella twins there. I think she would be the one over Brie Bella to be picked in this position if they were to do so. We've already got a legend in there in Lita, like I said earlier in the video, going for Becky Lynch. Saudi Arabia likes to call upon the legends, so Nikki Bella could be a great shout. She would be great for the spot. She's great in ring, and she would be a threat as well to potentially win the match and go on to WrestleMania. Certainly wouldn't be surprised if it came down to a one-on-one situation with like her and Bianca Belair or perhaps someone else in the Elimination Chamber structure. So for me, certainly has potential, but again, I'm holding back on these legends for this. We've got one legend in Lita. I again go with a 5 out of 10. So those are all my potentials there for you, what I think could happen. As you can tell by number rating, I think the most likely to happen is Asuka. I think a return for this spot would feel the most exciting, the most fresh. To see Asuka back on our screens after this length of time, I think would be pretty cool. And plus, I don't think she needs to win the match either. I think she could go in, have a great performance, even come as runner-up, and I think it would definitely give her some momentum going into WrestleMania. But I wouldn't be surprised if any of those returns were a potential. I feel that's why that spot is left vacant. I think we are getting someone back, and when we do eventually get Asuka, Bayley, Lacey Evans all back on the Raw or SmackDown rosters, wherever they end up, I do think that there'll be a lot more strength in depth in the women's division in WWE. 3 big names that I think are sorely missed, and it'll be great to have them back when they do return. But that's my opinion anyway. I think Asuka is returning for this spot as the mystery 6th entrant for the Elimination Chamber next Saturday. Who do you think it's going to be? Have I got it wrong? Have I missed some names out? Should I be thinking about other potential people? Let me know in the comments below right now who you think is going to fill that 6th spot in the chamber. In the meantime as well, check out some other videos as well on the channel, including what is the greatest Elimination Chamber match of all time according to Wrestling YouTube. Myself and 9 very talented wrestling YouTubers collaborate together to decide which is the greatest Elimination Chamber match of all time. There's also a live Q&A you can go and check out as well, and more videos will be dropping through the week, including Elimination Chamber predictions for next Saturday. But that's all from me. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time here on YouTube. You'll be watching SCW. Enjoy the rest of your day.